What's going on, Gary? Update us. What are you seeing?
Good. Life in the city is wonderful. I love it. I couldn't be any happier. My son turned 21 on Friday. My brother turned 40 on Thursday. And my birthday, 55. So we had 3 big birthdays last week.
Oh my God, happy birthday.
Your birthday. What day?
Maybe you should put me in your calendar on auto repeat every year.
I'm going to.
I put you in my calendar.
Too. What year is it? What's the date?
July 18th. Double nickels, baby.
I'm already there. I went there June 18th.
Listen.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my son came in with his girlfriend for the weekend, and we all hung out. I'm taking my brother out with Rach and my daughter at 7:30 for dinner to celebrate his birthday. So,
excellent.
Yeah, it's been a busy week in the Malin household.
Excellent. Yeah, and tell us what's going on in New York real estate.
I mean, look, the bottom line is the rental market's getting overpriced considerably. I think a lot of people are finally being priced out of the market. The landlords, certainly had their time to do what they did, rightfully so. But like I see vacancies starting to slowly but surely creep up. People can't afford what they're asking for. Apartments have just gotten crazy. And the sales market, I think June and July were better than previous months. I think when I see a lot of my agents and talk to them, they say they're busy, they feel busier. They have a lot of buyers that really want to jump in, but there's not enough inventory to sort of meet the demand. So I think with interest rates where they are, like people really mentally, in my personal belief, they need to see 5 to 5.5 to feel like they can deal with what they're dealing with. They can't take a 3.5%, 4% mortgage and go to 6.5%, 7%. They can't stomach it. They could stomach 5 to 5.5 is what I think, maybe a little bit higher. So I think like it's got to work itself through the system, but it's a tale of different agents, right? You speak to some who are busy and doing well, and then you speak to others. It's just their business is definitely quiet as could be. And I think the difference is A, how long you've been in the business, B, how do you generate business? Like what are you putting your time on? What are you motivating? What are you networking? Are you building your pipeline? Some are just reacting to the market and some are actually managing the market. And I think it's different.
Gary, along those lines, I think it's a good time to maybe suggest to people out there, what is it that you would recommend your agents would do at this time right now? Maybe is it contact all of your past rentals buyers or renters in the last 5 years? What would you say to do to just kind of just drum up some new business or leads?
I mean, first and foremost, check every single thing about you that exists online and make sure that it's accurate, right? Is your bio up to date? Is your Instagram up to date? Is your LinkedIn up to date? Do you have marketing materials that reflect who you are and what you do at this point in your career? Pick up the phone, call your past clients. Don't email, don't text, call. Take them out for a drink, meet them somewhere, do something, create a client appreciation party. I know no one wants to spend any money, but the bottom line is you got to build your pipeline. And the only way you're going to build your pipeline is actively going out there and doing it. And I think too many people are just waiting on the sidelines for business to just show up. And I appreciate that some just don't have the wherewithal or the resources, but there's a million things you could do. I call it like a digital audit. You should do a digital audit of yourself. Like there's so many things that people actually went online and Google themselves. They would find out what is being represented in the world about them is not actually who they are anymore in this industry. And I always tell people you're being interviewed right now, whether you realize it or not. So if your digital footprint isn't good, you might be losing opportunities you shouldn't lose. So you got to do a whole like spring cleaning of yourself and put yourself in the position to be successful when that business does come back.
And there's another piece to that too, Gary, which is if they Google themselves in their listings on a regular basis, they will find out if someone is spoofing them, someone's pretending to beat them. And I just got another email today to the legal line. It's happening more and more. So at least if they're aware of the fact that there are bad people out there who are trying to collect, $200 for an application fee, pretending to be someone else, they will find out about that. And I know it's not, necessarily what people want to hear. They want a better resolution to that, but at the very least, at least know about it. So then you can try to be proactive about that. So it's more than just the marketing piece, it's the protectionary piece as well.
I want to point something out. I'm sure you guys are aware of this, but how do you feel, Gary, about people going out there and charging 1% or 2%?
I mean, listen, my whole philosophy on that has never been anything different. The best lawyers, the best doctors, the best financial planners, the best athletes, the best anything in life charge the most. Why? Because they're worth it. And if you as a real estate agent think the more experience you get, the less you should charge, you're probably in the wrong business. Because if that's all you're willing to accept, then there's a huge problem. That means, in my personal opinion, you don't know how to sell your value. And I think the market is spoken in many ways, like at least here in our market, when Foxtons or all these other so-called low-priced companies came in, they didn't make a dent on the market. You want to work with a professional, and if your first response is to cut your fee, I would never hire you, ever. I'd be like, okay, next. Like, if you don't believe in yourself so much and you think the way to get me as a client is to be cheap, what corners are you going to be cutting while you're representing me? So for me, I think it's the quickest way to go out of business.
I struggle with that a lot, but not as much anymore. I'm curious, Neil, your thoughts on it, because, so often, Gary, I don't know about Neil, but they try and get the price lower on fees all the time. And I pretty much do stick to my fee these days. It's tough, especially when it's quiet.
Right.
But it's probably different though on your end of it than our end of it also. It's a different business. It's a different end of the business.
I completely agree with that. And the price points are far different. But I always say, look, we're not the cheapest. We're not the most expensive. We're a good value, and you get what you pay for. So,
That's right.
And I also, I'm like, at this point in my career, I'm like, then go find someone else. I agree. I go find someone else.
Yeah, that's what I say these days too. And you're right. You know what? The second they start doing that, if they don't back down once you're not interested, then you know that they're going to be all over you the whole time anyway.
Exactly. If they want to go to a big firm and pay hourly and they want to do that, that's great. That's okay. Have at it. But that's up to them.
Gary, I think a big question out there to listeners would be, when at this point, we're at the end of July, if somebody's going to list, when should they list?
I mean, I would do it right after Labor Day. I think between now and the end of Labor Day, historically, good market or bad market, things are just going to die down. People are going to decompress, go away. Kids are back, vacation time. I would make sure that you're ready to go, but that doesn't mean you can't do some planning now. Get your agent in, get some pictures taken, clean up your apartment, paint it, stage it, whatever is necessary. Get it prepped. Don't start that process after Labor Day. I would get it all set to go. And then right after Labor Day, give or take, I would hit the market, because there's a lot of buyers out there that want to buy. Like, they've capitulated. It's the sellers that haven't capitulated as much as the buy side has. So, no one's forcing you to sell your apartment, right? If you don't get the price, you don't get the offer, you don't get whatever, that's fine. But if you need to move, I would say right after Labor Day, if I was any agent, that's when I'd be preparing to do this. Between now and then, I would do nothing in terms of like really doing anything other than establishing the baseline for marketing when it's time to go.
What about staging? Do you think it's important these days?
It's always important depending on the apartment, right? An empty space always looks smaller. A filled space looks bigger. You imagine yourself living there. You can see yourself physically, how you would live there. Most people don't have a good sense of space. So you don't know what size couch you could fit. Can the dining room table fit? Is this really an eating kitchen or not? So I think depending on the price point and depending on what you're looking to accomplish, you want to take out as many sort of questions that a buyer could potentially have. And one easy way to do that is to obviously stage it.
Right. What do you think about the trend ahead in September once we get there? Do you think it's going to be your co-op resales? Do you think it's going to be condos? Where's new development? What do you see the trend to be?
I mean, look, people want condos more than they want co-ops in the sense of flexibility and not dealing with all the issues that come along with that. But obviously the price point is quite different. So I think depending upon who you are and what your circumstances are, I think co-op boards are beginning to some degree to realize that they need to have some modern approach to dealing with these things, because they're losing value and they need reserve funds and need a lot of different things for their buildings. So I think that's important. New development's tough, like it's expensive, and the city, the way the city's been, getting people to put shovels in ground and get stuff done. It's a definitely expensive proposition, with inflation and the cost of goods. It's tough for a lot of owners to eke out living. So the ones that are out there and the ones that are doing well, I mean, we have a lot of new developments that are really showing great activity. I would go look at them all and, see if there's any sort of negotiability. But it depends on the person, right? Some people want to buy something where they can put their stamp on it and they want to do their own renovations. And some people want to literally just drop their bags and be done and call it a day. So different strokes for different folks, but I think they all suit different needs and also where you want to live. You might not have as many opportunities to buy exactly what you want if you're only going to be focused on one thing. So I think looking at the broad spectrum and then playing the numbers after the fact is what most people will do, unless you're just so adverse to how intrusive a co-op process can be.
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't you tell folks to use this time? You were talking about that before, but go look at properties, experience properties. I wrote an article a couple of years ago. The demise of the real estate agent is overly exaggerated, and what I meant by that was, it's such an emotional business. You got to touch things. You have to be in the property to feel it, to understand it. You can't go by square footage because everyone computes square footage differently. Properties, everything lays out differently. So what may be listed as 1,200 square feet could be really a nice sized property. So, and certainly looking at pictures, anyone could use a wide lens camera, in which they do, and everything looks huge. So my point is that you're talking about taking the time, take the time to really go out. If you're a buyer, go out, look at stuff. That's how you really educate yourself. And that's how you put yourself in a position to be ready to take the next step, as far as I'm concerned. My sister-in-law, they just put an offer on a property out on Long Island, beautiful kind of pre-war building. She's really nervous. And I said, you're not buying as an investment. You're buying to live there. Don't worry about, right? If you were completely overpaying, that would be fine, but that's not the case. But buy with your heart right now. You got to be smart about it, but don't worry about the price point per se. You're going to live there hopefully the next 10, 12, 15 years.
Look, so many people have analysis paralysis, right? Analyze, do nothing. The bottom line is everyone always wants to buy low and sell high. But you know what? In a market like this, you're not going to know where the low was until it's in your rearview mirror. So all of your circumstances need to be factored into making a decision, like Neil said. If you're buying it for the long term, you know what? So put a little more money down if you have the opportunity. The prices are probably a little bit negotiable, so you can get a little bit lower price, put a little bit more money down, or the same that you would have before. Do an ARM, do an IO, figure out how to play around with your payments, and then eventually you can marry the payment with the price that you got. And if you go out and you look at apartments and you see a lot, you can start to know, okay, all of a sudden I saw 10 apartments that I've loved. None of them gone into contract, or the ones that have at or below. You can start to get your own due diligence, and you can start to get your own data to make your own decision. And maybe you'll eventually convince yourself, wow, if I bought this when I wanted to a month ago, I could have bought it for this and sold for that. Wow, that's a problem. And I think maybe that's what gets people off, the sidelines and makes them commit, is realizing like there's no perfect time, right?
No.
Timing is luck. It's not skill. And if you just make your decision based upon what, like Neil said, this is where your family is, this is where you are, this is where you want to be, this is your lifestyle. Like, are you going to care about this in 3 years, or are you going to spend the next 90 to 120 days abusing yourself mentally because you can't make a decision, but you're miserable living where you live? Like, that's not a healthy balance to me.
Right.
I sold my house and moved. I didn't get every last dollar I wanted, but I wanted to leave. So I left.
So someone said there's no such thing as buying bad. There's only such thing as selling bad. So like, if you really think about that, I mean, it's buy for the right reasons. Don't worry about the sales piece.
People they can't handle. Listen, the vast majority of times when interest rates have risen over the course of time, it was a step up over an extended period of time. So it never felt as bad as it felt. Whereas this one was so much in such a short period of time, coming from such cheap money, that it's just like, who knows if 3% interest rates are ever going to come back?
It's like sticker shock is really what it, but the one thing I will say that I've noticed, and I wonder if you guys have touched on this too, and I think it's something that could be helpful for the entire industry. And Neil, you can validate this if it's correct or not. There's a bunch of lenders. You can get money out there for construction right now. So people that were afraid to buy where there was full gut, an estate sale, a house that needed work, they should look into that. Some of the banks are offering it still. I mean, Citizens is still offering it. I know, Madison, J through them, they're doing single families. I'm sure some of the smaller banks, I don't know if I think TD might still be. What about you, Neil? Do you hear about construction loans?
We do a little bit, but I think there's product out there for everything. Just take the time to do, to explore and put your time in. You'll find it. You'll definitely find it.
All right. What do you think? Last question. Gary, when do you think that we could actually see a turnaround where it will be noticeable that people are listing? How much longer do you think it will be? Where it will be significant?
My gut would tell me second quarter of next year would probably be the time where you would start to see it be noticeable. I think you're going to have a nice, decent little run during the fall, but we know what happens come November in this city, right? It's going to just slow down, and then you got to get through winter. So I would sort of feel, unless something changes quickly with interest rates, which I do think that would be the one thing that could change any of these things. But let's just say what the natural evolution, my gut would be second quarter of next year, you could start to feel a better sense of recovery.
Yeah. I mean, I agree wholeheartedly. If one of these lenders comes out and says, hey, we'll give 5% on the 30-year, I think that we will all be crazy, crazy busy.
And people will forget, right, very quickly how much pain they feel right now. That's what I try to tell people. It's like, what? Bottom line is I've lived through a lot of bad markets. I've seen a lot of bad things. One thing I do know, they end. The question is when. Some people don't have that perspective. Some people can only remember the market they've been in. They don't know what it was. So you got to give them context. This just feels worse, right? And this just feels more acute and more long lasting because there's so many other things that are on top of it that just push people down. I just think that that's what you got to remind people. Good times come to an end and then they come back. It's just a matter of how long.
The key word was context. Everything is context.
People perspective so they can not react emotionally. They got to react intellectually.
Right. All right. Good stuff, guys. I'm glad we made some time to do this. Thank you so much.
Yes.
And that was take two on What's Up New York Real Estate.
Well,
so thank you guys.
We spend with Neil, like I said, it's
what about me?
Yeah. I mean, we love you, but I mean, Neil's like
I know.
king.
I
agree. He controls it. We're all like, we're all like his little marionettes.
That's right. I'm a fan, obviously.
Yeah. Looking forward to take 3. Okay.
Have a good
Love
week.
you guys.
Next
Enjoy.
time. All
Bye.
right. Take care.